Hey, what's up guys? Thank you. I'm taking a drink of water. Hey, what's up guys? Thank you so much for clicking on another one of my videos. So today I want to talk about all of the books that I have read in 2025 so far. So this will be kind of like a first quarter wrap up, January, February, March. So without further ado, let's just get into it. So the first book that I finished this year was The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston or Poston. I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name. But this was my third Ashley Poston book. I read, what was that one called? The lemon book. What was that book? I read The 7-Year Slip by her first, then a novel love story, and then this was my third one. So unfortunately, I did not love this book, and I haven't loved any of her books, and I think it's just because her writing style is just not for me, and maybe it has something to do with the fact that I've listened to all three of them as audiobooks, and maybe since it's magical realism, I'm just not able to follow along really well, but I feel that I just get lost in the storyline and I don't really connect to the characters that much. So overall, my rating for this one was 2.75 stars. The second book that I finished in January was Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. So out of the Harry Potter series, I have read 3 of them, working on the 4th one, but the 3rd one was my least favorite, and I think it's just because I feel like the mystery of the book didn't pick up till about 70% of the way through, for me at least, so I was just kind of bored and it was dragging. I did give it overall a 3 stars because I'm really enjoying just seeing the character development and learning more about Harry's story, and I love Hogwarts and all the lore associated with it, but I just didn't love this one. You'll have to excuse me, my voice is a little hoarse because I have some allergies. But the next book that I read was The Husbands by Holly Gramazio. I'm not sure how to pronounce her name, but I gave this one a 3-star as well. I'm starting to think that maybe I just don't like magical realism because I found this one really hard to follow as well. But overall, I really enjoyed it and I really liked the ending of this book. Next, we have The No-Show by Beth O'Leary. I read this one in January, but this is the perfect Valentine's Day book, but I do feel like it is a bit misleading because when you look at the cover, it's pink and it has cartoon illustrations on it, and I went into this thinking that it was going to be like a cute little rom-com romance book. The synopsis describes our male main character standing up 3 different women, and so immediately going into it, you're mad at the male main character, at least I was, and the majority of the book I was like hating on this man. I was like, after hearing these 3 women's stories, there's no way that they can make me love this man. But the ending does come with a twist, and I just feel like, I don't know necessarily if it's the marketing or what it was that was misleading to me, but I felt very misled. I felt very tricked. And so maybe I'm just salty because I didn't guess the plot twist, but I gave it a 3.25 stars. So like I said, the timeline just really threw me off. I felt like it was misleading, but I still would recommend reading it. But please go into it knowing that it's going to be an emotional read. It's not like a fun, cute little read. It has a lot of depth to it, and that's not bad. But just know what you're getting into if you pick up that book. Next, I'm so excited to talk about this one. This is my first 5-star book of the year, and that was The Love of My Afterlife by Kristy Greenwood. And this was such a satisfying 5-star read because all throughout 2024 I picked up this book so many times, and finally my husband bought it for me. So I had a lot of high hopes for it, and maybe that kind of influenced my 5-star rating, but I don't think it did because I genuinely loved this book. I could not put it down. So I feel like that is the mark of a really good book, is when I just cannot put it down. I was giggling, I was kicking my feet. It was so cute. Delphi is everything to me. She is such a quirky character, and if you've read the book Eleanor Oliphant is Fine, is that the name of the, I think that's the name of the book, but it reminds me of her. It gives that type of same energy. So I feel like she's just offbeat and quirky. She has a hard time interacting with people, which I personally relate to as an introvert and someone that's kind of awkward. I feel like I really connected with her, and the love story is so vivid in my mind, even though this was one of the first books I read this year. So if a book really sticks in my mind, I feel like that's how I know that I love it. And there were so many parts of this book that I tabbed. I carried it around with me for days till I finished it. Anyway, you can tell by the cover that it's just really cute, and there is some depth to it as well. But I will say that this book reignited my hope in magical realism, because it is a magical realism book and I absolutely loved it. So now I'm starting to think that I just have to find the right magical realism book to really get me. Next we have The Only One Left by Riley Sager. I have the physical copy of this book, but I did listen to it as an audiobook, which I actually really enjoyed. Now, I enjoyed the first 80% of this book. Like, I was really hooked and invested in the mystery, but I feel like the end, there was just too much going on. I, for one, love a good twist, as everybody does that reads mysteries, thrillers. Like, we all love a good twist. But sometimes it's just like too busy. Like, there's too much going on. It was a bit implausible. Like, again, I just didn't think it was a very realistic ending. And it was just like, I could have done with it just one plot twist, but there was so many plot twists that I was like, okay, now you're losing me. I can't even keep track of what's what. But overall, I did give it a 3.75 stars. There are a couple of books that I read at the beginning of the year for a class I was taking called Teaching Young Adult Literature. So this is the first of those, and this is The Sun Is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. Now, this is a reread for me, and it was interesting because I read it for the first time when I was in high school, and now as an adult, I feel like I viewed this a lot differently. This is a book all about fate and love. And it does have an insta-love trope, so if you don't like that, you might not like this. But I personally don't like insta-love trope, and this one I feel like it was just different. And it had a lot of depth to it, and it has a lot to do with finding your identity and challenging your beliefs. So I really like this. I gave it overall a 3 star, and I think it's just because I'm not the target demographic for this book. Sometimes young adult just feels obviously too young for me because I'm not a young adult anymore, but I still did enjoy it overall. Next, I read Nothing Like the Movies. Now, I've seen a lot of mixed reviews on this book, and I feel conflicted about this book also. So I really enjoyed seeing Wes and Liz as budding adults, and as they went to college and everything like that. I enjoyed seeing a different side of them, and I feel like a lot of people said, oh, I hate this because it just doesn't seem like Liz is the same. Like, when she was in high school, she loved to wear dresses and to watch rom-coms and all this stuff, and now she's so different. But people grow and change their interests and change who they are, especially when something traumatic happens to them. Of course you're going to change. So I don't feel that that is something negative to say. I enjoyed like her new hobbies and the new Liz. Like, I don't feel like she has to stay the same as she was in high school. Same for Wes. I gave it overall 3.5 star because it did make me emotional at the end. Not gonna lie, it did get me. And I think that the end was very abrupt. I will say that. It was like this big build-up, and then it just like cut off, and I was like, okay. But I enjoyed the playlist as always in Lynn Painter's book, so that was a plus for me. Next, I read Beautiful Day by Elin Hilderbrand. I looked at my rating for this, and I gave it a 4.25 or a 4.5 stars. Now looking back, I would probably lower my rating a little, maybe like a 4 star, because I don't really think about the characters ever or think about this book a lot ever, but it was all surrounding a wedding and wedding planning and a bunch of wedding drama, which I love that. It reminds me of The Perfect Couple by Elin Hilderbrand, or really any other book with wedding drama, but it doesn't contain a murder. I will say that. It's not like a murder mystery, but I just love seeing the tea and the drama, which this book was no different. And again, I'm just blown away by how intricate each of the characters in an Elin Hilderbrand novel is. Like, even the side characters feel like the main characters because you know so much about them, and I just love that. I am so excited to talk about this next book, and that is Anxious People by Fredrik Backman. I tabbed so much in this book, and I was looking at Goodreads. In my review for this, I simply put, this book is everything to me, and it is everything to me. I think about this book often, and if you're someone that likes deep emotional reads, then you should read this. And I feel like the cover is very deceptive. It's very bright colored, and of course it's called Anxious People, so but when you read the synopsis, it talks about a hostage situation, so you're kind of thinking like, oh, it's just going to be kind of like a quirky comedy hostage situation, like I said, but it actually has so much more to it. I teared up at so many parts of this book, and I think I talked about this in a previous video about 5-star reads, but if you want to develop a sense of empathy for other people, then you should definitely read this, because it really shows you that there's so much that people go through despite how they present themselves, and it talks a lot about family, and also if you're a parent, I feel like you would really enjoy this book because I think that it helps build empathy for parents, because sometimes I think that we elevate the people that raise us as like these superheroes. They can do no wrong. But this kind of shows they're people just like us too, just trying to survive. So I love this book. Next, I read A Time to Dance, and this was for my master's program, but this touches on the topics of disability and its coming of age. But this book is kind of different because it's written in prose and the language is all very lyrical. There's a lot of figurative language. I think it's a beautiful story. I gave it a 3.25. Again, sometimes young adult is just, I'm not the target demographic for it, but I think that it's a beautiful depiction of embracing a disability, especially a physical disability. It's really a beautiful depiction of someone accepting themselves, not in spite of their disability, but because of their disability, and just like loving that part of themselves. Next, I read A Winter in New York by Josie Silver, and I wish I wouldn't have. Yeah. My Goodreads review, I put nope, nope, nope. This book wraps up everything I hate about romance book characters. Yeah. I feel like the main character, Iris, is a pathological liar. At the very least has a problem with lying. That frustrated me. And I feel like the main characters, they didn't have any chemistry at all. That annoyed me. Let me just say, I loved One Day in December by Josie Silver. That book really got me into reading as a child, and I reread it and loved it again as an adult. So I don't think that by any means Josie Silver is a bad writer. This book was just not for me. Like I said, it encapsulates everything that I personally hate about romance books, like lying, pushing people away, miscommunication, everything like that. And I was not expecting that going into this, but it was a chore to get through. I gave it a 1.5 stars just because I liked the atmosphere of it. But other than that, there was nothing for me. So, moving on. Next, I read Monday's Not Coming by Tiffany Jackson. I gave this one a 4-star. The story is absolutely heartbreaking. Like, I was not expecting it to go to the length that it did, but as a teacher, it broke my heart. And the premise is that this high school girl named Monday goes missing, and it's all about her best friend trying to find her. Definitely check your trigger warnings before going into this because it handles a lot of heavy topics, but for me, like I said, as a teacher, it was just hard to read, but it was a read that I don't regret because it made me more aware of a lot of things that students and just children can go through in general. Again, it's really heartbreaking, but it definitely opened my eyes to a lot of things. Next, we have The Pear's Apartment by Lucy Foley. I really liked The Midnight Feast. That made it on my best books list of 2024. But this one I didn't enjoy as much. I feel like it was very slow paced. Even though the chapters were so short, I was just not invested in it. It didn't feel thrilling to me. And so by the end of the book, I wasn't invested enough to be shocked. So for that reason, I gave it a 3.25 star. I have nothing else really to say about that. Next, I read The Love Season by Elin Hilderbrand, and I just wish that the characters' stories were wrapped up a bit more on this one, but I loved the food descriptions. I loved the character development as usual. I gave it a 3.25 just because it wasn't really anything remarkable to me when it stacked up against her other books. Next, I read They Both Die at the End, and this was a reread for me. I enjoyed my time with this book. It definitely reminds you how we as humans are not invincible, and just to cherish every moment that you have and that you have with your loved ones and everything like that, because you never know when it's going to get taken away from you. It is a dystopia, which I love that genre. I gave it a 3.5 stars, so I liked it. Next, I read Caught Up by Liz Tomford, and this is the third one in the Windy City series. The only other book I've read in the Windy City series was Play Along, and that was a 5-star read for me. I loved Kennedy and Isaiah so much, but I feel like Miller and Kai did not live up to that for me, so I'm sorry to say. I know I read them in the wrong order, but it didn't live up for me. I did end up falling in love with their relationship as the book went on, but I feel like near the beginning of the book and even like later into the book, I feel like they crossed each other's boundaries a little bit. I don't know, they just did some things that for me personally, I would be like, if that happened to me in real life, I would not like that. I feel like it was like an insta-love trope almost, which I don't like that. I don't like in books. Now, I like some spice in books, but I don't like when the physical connection feels like it's the foundation for the relationship. So that's just a preference for me. I know a lot of people love this book, but for me, I gave it a 3 stars. Next, I read The Guide by Peter Heller. I read this one with my husband because he's a fly fisherman, and this is all about fly fishing, and it has a mystery aspect. Now, he really enjoyed it, and I don't even really feel that it's fair for me to give this book a rating because I have to admit I did fall asleep a couple of times while listening to this book. So I don't feel like it's fair for me to rate it. I got really lost, and I just wasn't my cup of tea because I wasn't invested in like the whole fishing storyline. But if you're an outdoorsman / outdoors woman, or a fisherwoman, you'd probably really enjoy this. Next, I read The House of My Mother by Sherry Frankie. This book was another one that's absolutely heart-shattering, and I just can't believe that stuff like that actually happens in the world. Yeah, definitely check trigger warnings on this one before going into it, but I would 1000% recommend reading it because it really shows you what can go on behind the scenes, and also the harms of documenting a child's life on social media, especially without their consent. And I really respect the way that Sherry guarded her siblings' identities, except for one who was already all over the internet. But I really like how she did that because she believes that they should have the choice whether or not to share their story. And I really like that because I feel like everyone should have the choice whether or not they want to share vulnerable parts of their lives. And I'm really glad that she did share her story and bring to light these issues. So I would definitely check it out. Next, we have How to Age Disgracefully by Claire Pooley. I give this one a 3 star. It was just like cute. I love the cover too. I think it challenged a lot of stereotypes around aging, but I don't really have many other thoughts. It's just like a cute, cozy, fun read. Next, we have Heartless Hunter by Kristen Cicerelli. I'm so excited to talk about this book because this was on my TBR for so long, and I almost didn't pick it up because I had heard so many people talk about it that I felt like the hype was just overwhelming, and I was like, there's no way that this book can actually live up to the hype that it gets. But it did. It did live up to the hype. I couldn't put this book down. I loved it so much, and I loved the politics in this book. I feel like it was really easy to read. So if you like romantasy, I bet that you would love this book. I don't read a lot of fantasy, so this book is like a very entry-level book, in my opinion. I did a whole video talking about my reading of Heartless Hunter and Rebel Witch, so the Crimson Moth duology. So if you want to know more about that, go check it out. Next, I read Push by Sapphire. This was another book for my young adult literature course, and just like Monday's Not Coming, it was heart-shattering as a teacher to read, but again, I think it definitely helps you build empathy, and I rated it a 4 star. Now, this is a very heavy read, so definitely make sure that you're in the mindset to read about these type of topics before going into it. Next, I have the Winter Street series by Elin Hilderbrand. I have 3 of the physical copies, but there are 4 in this series. This was overall like a 3.5 star series for me. These are very bingeable and easy to get through because they're short. So if you're looking for a bingeable winter series, I would definitely recommend this. The character development is great, and I loved following these characters throughout all of the books. Next, we have the Happily Ever After playlist by Abby Jimenez. I'm not gonna lie, I cannot tell you almost one single thing that happened in this book. I think it had to do with like a famous singer, and it surrounded that. That's the only thing I remember, to be quite honest. I rated it a 2.75 because it just seemed unrealistic. It was cute, like I did enjoy my time reading it, but I can't even tell you what it's about. Next, we have The Many Lives of Mama Love by Laura Love Hardin. I listened to this one on audio, and I would definitely recommend reading it because I feel that there are a lot of stereotypes around drug use and just addiction that this book challenges and helps you build empathy for people that are struggling with addiction. So I would definitely recommend reading it. Next, I listened to The Woman in Me by Britney Spears. As you can see, I was kind of on a little memoir kick, but I definitely am glad that I read this. Now, this isn't narrated by Britney Spears, but I still enjoyed hearing her story. It encourages you to look at her in a different way than what the media is portraying, and it honestly breaks your heart for her to see what she went through, and I'm so happy to see that she's doing well now. But again, it was so infuriating to hear what she had to go through. Next, I read Between Us by Mari McFarlane, and I loved this book. This was very unexpected to me. It caught me off guard. This was my first book that I read by this author, but I loved it. I loved the character development. I learned a lot of new words, and I can't wait to pick up another one of her reads. It definitely reads like literary fiction. Even though the cover kind of looks like a romance book, it's definitely way more than that and has a lot of complex characters in them. And the main character was a high school English teacher like me, so of course I related to that part. I gave it a 4.25 stars, and I can't wait to pick up another one by her. Next, I read the first 2 books in the Selection series. Now, this is a young adult dystopian series, and I heard it described as like The Bachelor, but in a dystopian world, and I would definitely say that that is accurate. So for that reason, I loved reading these alongside of watching this season of The Bachelor. So if you like The Bachelor, I feel like you would like this. They're very quick, bingeable reads. I don't know if I'll continue the series just because I am a bit bored with it, and maybe again that I'm not the target demographic for it, but I enjoyed my time while I was reading them. I gave them both 3 stars. Next, I read Rebel Witch by Kristen Cicerelli, and I loved this book as well. Like I said before, if you want to hear my in-depth review of this duology, then check out my latest video besides this one. I also gave this one a 4.5 stars. Next, I read Margot's Got Money Troubles, and I loved it on audio, so I would recommend listening to it rather than reading it. But either way, I think you should definitely pick it up. It again builds empathy for people struggling with addiction and also just unconventional jobs and just trying to get by in the world as an average human being. A lot of messed up stuff happened to Margot that made me so sad for her, and like she's truly just trying to survive. So if you like things like that, it does feel very heavy, but I would recommend it. I gave it a 4 star, and I will read a quote from the book that really touched me, and it says, "Because that's all art is in the end, one person trying to get another person they've never met to fall in love with them." So I think that that really beautifully encapsulates this book. Next, I read the first and third book in the Paradise series by Elin Hilderbrand. I didn't mean to do this. This was unintentional, skipping the second book. But I gave the first one a 3.5 stars and the second one a 4 stars, which I don't know if I would leave it at 4 stars right now, probably a 3.5. But anyway, I love the intricate characters as usual, and it has a lot of tea in it. It's like a lot of family drama, so I enjoyed it. Let me take a deep breath for this one. Next, I read Wild Love by Elsie Silver. Now, don't come for me after hearing my review. This is just my opinion, okay? I have to emphasize that. But I just found the love story to be cringe. Like, so many things that these characters did, I was like, cringe. You cannot tell me if this man did that in real life that you would have enjoyed that. I don't want to spoil any scenes, but I just found it to be unrealistic. I found it to be cringy, and I feel like at the beginning they were both so mean to each other, and I don't like when books also try to have this like enemies to lovers thing, but they're not enemies. They have no reason to be enemies. They're just enemies for the sake of being enemies. I don't really understand that. But on a positive note, I love the relationship between Ford and his daughter, Cora. Cora, to me, really made this book a lot better. But I did give it a 3 stars. So I didn't hate it by the end, but I didn't love it. Next, we have The Switch by Beth O'Leary. This was really cute and easy to get through. I gave it 3 stars. Next, we have another banger of a magical realism book, and that is The Good Part by Sophie Cousins. I read another book by Sophie Cousins at the end of 2024, which was Is She Really Going Out With Him? And I loved that book, and I love this book too. It's not quite up there with Is She Really Going Out With Him for me, but I still loved it. This book also reminds me of The Husbands that I read earlier in this year, but better in my opinion. I think that this book was so precious, and it really just emphasizes enjoying every part of your life, even if things don't go as planned, just enjoying all the twists and turns that life takes, and I love books like that that make you just like have a reignited appreciation for your life, and this book definitely did that for me. Next we have The God of the Woods by Liz Moore. My Goodreads review says it all, which is that unfortunately I was bored the entire way through this book. The ending was predictable. My husband and I both guessed it. So for that reason, I gave it a 2.25 stars. And I just feel like it was very slow. Like, it's marketed as a thriller, but it's not thrilling. It didn't thrill me. Next, we have Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young, and I loved this book. This was so cute and wholesome, and I just feel like individually I was rooting for both of the main characters despite how it ended up. Like, whether or not they ended up together or not, I was going to root for them. I love Bo and Win so much. I give this book a 4 stars. It has the accidental pregnancy trope in this book, like that's what it's surrounding, but I think that it's a really beautiful depiction of disabilities, and again, loving yourself not in spite of your disabilities, but because of them, and just accepting them as a part of who you are and what makes you uniquely you. So I love this book. Next, I did a reread of Funny Story by Miss Emily Henry, and I just bedazzled this book. So I really love the way that it looks even more now. But this is springtime in a book. So if you're looking for a good spring book recommendation, this is the one for you. So I first read this book last year when it was released, and I didn't love it as much as I did this time. I was really hooked the entire time and rooting for both of our main characters. I will also say that I made a whole 30 song playlist for this book, and you know that I'm invested in a book if I make a playlist for it. So I gave this one 4 stars upon the reread. It's still not my favorite Emily Henry, but I love the occupations that both the main characters had, which also made it seem just so much more enjoyable to me. So Daphne is a librarian, which I really enjoyed reading about, and Miles works at a winery, which I thought was intriguing. So if you want all the spring vibes, I would definitely recommend picking up this book. Next, I read The Island by Elin Hilderbrand, and I gave this one a 3.25 stars. It wasn't anything super remarkable, but it explores the dynamics in a sister relationship, which I really enjoyed reading about, and just like family dynamics in general, which I enjoyed. And again, I just read her books for the character development, not really even for the plot, just the character development. So I enjoyed this book. All right, here, it's time to cook up. You already know what time it is. Now, if you have been in my life for any amount of time in the past month, you know what series I'm about to cook up and talk about. And that is the Hunger Games series. So I first read Sunrise on the Reaping right whenever it was released, and that has just reignited my love for the Hunger Games series. So I don't want to go into too much depth about the series yet, because I'm planning to make a whole other video about my in-depth thoughts about the Hunger Games series, my ratings on them, how I'm going to rank them, like which ones I like best, which ones I like the least, even though I love all of them. But I'm gonna leave you on a little bit of a cliffhanger there. I will quickly go over my ratings for them, but again, I'm not going to go into too much depth. So I don't have the physical copy of Sunrise on the Reaping right now, because as soon as I finished reading it, a bunch of my students wanted to borrow it. But I gave that one a 5 stars. So that was awesome, because I hadn't had a 5 stars since Anxious People by Fredrik Backman in January. So it was in March when I got that 5-star read. But I could not put that book down. Everywhere I went, that book went with me. And Hamish's story just broke my heart. Now, you already can like see him throughout the Hunger Games series and like how he ends up, but you don't know what it took to get him there, and I feel like it just helps you build so much empathy for him. And again, I'm not going to go into too much details, but that book is everything to me. So next we have The Hunger Games, the first one, of course, and these special editions are beautiful, by the way. I gave this one an easy 5 stars. It never gets old to me. It just never gets old. This will always have a special place in my heart. The whole series will, but I loved this book. Next we have, of course, Catching Fire, of course, and I also gave this one 5 stars. And then Mockingjay, I gave this one a 4.5. So This one didn't quite reach the 5-star for me, but I remember watching the first part of the movie, not the second. So there are some parts in here that I had forgot what happened. And again, I'm not going to go into it, but just know I gave it a 4.5. Now, I didn't reread Songbirds of Ballads and Snakes because I read that one last year right before the movie came out, and that one was really slow paced for me, and I don't even think I rated it on Goodreads, so I'm not really sure. I might have to do a reread of that. But if you want more of my thoughts broken down, then keep your eye out for my video talking about the Hunger Games. Alright guys, so those are all of the books that I read in the first quarter of the year. Leave a comment down below telling me what was your favorite book that you have read so far this year. And like I said, keep an eye out for some other videos coming out very shortly. But thank you guys again for watching. Please leave a like and a comment if you're able to. I appreciate all the support, and I hope your reading year is going as well as mine is.